So RenovoFYI is the name of the product. It's also the name of the company, and we are part of a larger company called Flexi International Software. It's an ERP solution. It's been around since '91. But RenovoFYI, the report writer, was developed around 2009, 2010, after Microsoft announced that it was going to be discontinuing its support of FRX. So a lot of the functionality and a lot of the features of the product are very similar to FRX for that reason. Some of the reasons why people select Renovo for the report writer are some of these features here. So for one, we do provide a conversion utility that allows you to convert your existing FRX reports. So I'm assuming there are some people that use FRX, but if you are, we can convert all your reports from FRX into Renovo. And we're pretty much the only people that can do it at the level of accuracy on the marketplace. Second is the design concept. We use a very similar design concept to FRX. We use rows and columns and something a lot like trees called organizations. So it's a very familiar report design. It's designed in a way that if you're used to designing reports in this way in FRX, you'll be able to transition very smoothly into this report writer without having to learn a whole new way of writing reports. Third is the fact that it's a browser on the front end. Basically, we've taken a lot of the things that people liked about FRX and we've kept them, and then we've expanded upon or improved upon other areas. And one of those is technology. So it's a browser front end using Internet Explorer to do all of your report design and reviewing reports, etc. With a more powerful SQL server on the back end. So technologically, it's very modern. And last is the distribution functionality. It's one of the features in the product that's really nice. It allows you to automate the bursting and distribution of your reports out to various people. So I'm just going to talk about some of these features. One is the conversion. So if either of you or any of you guys are using FRX, we can get you up and running very quickly with Renovo because we're able to convert your existing reports. We basically take all of your rows, your columns, your trees, your font styles, your count sets, and we run it through a utility. And so, for example, this row definition on this balance sheet in FRX, we convert it over into Renovo, and it comes out, looking very similar. So your reports, from a before and after perspective, from FRX to Renovo are going to look very much the same formatting, same layout, same results, etc. And we have a very high accuracy of conversion. Probably 90 to 95% of the definitions convert over. There's always going to be a little bit of cleanup. So, there's just a little bit of cleanup with some formulas maybe or certain things that we're well aware of what doesn't convert. It's very slight things. So it's never going to be perfect, just by running it through the utility, but we can get you really, really close, and then we'll just do a little bit of the cleanup at the end to help you get up and running. So, Renovo is really the only ones on the market that do have that capability. Second is that we use rows, columns, and organizational trees as the design concepts. And I'm not going to go into this in much detail because I think you guys probably are familiar with this concept. But basically, this is the design concept that made FRX very popular over the last 25 years or so. And basically, you have a row layout and a column layout component, I should say, that you build and you save and then you apply to various reports to build the body of the report. And then you apply a organizational structure so that you can get departmentalized reports. So with one report, or just the definition of a couple of components, you can create multiple variations of this income statement with different layouts as well as different departmental breakouts to distribute out to various people. So you don't have to maintain, 20 different versions of a report. You can just have one definition and then, mix and match the components. So we use the same design concepts, and you'll see that in the demonstration. Third is the the technology really. Renovo uses just a much more modern technology. It uses a browser for the front end and a server for the back end. So it's going to be different than a lot of the other packages that you see on the marketplace. It's not an Excel-based product. It uses a browser. And one of the advantages for using the browser for the front end is that there's no software to maintain on anybody's workstation, and that they can access the reports. So your users can just go online to a web page, log in, and they can view their reports online and drill down on them. There's nothing for you to maintain from an IT perspective, in terms of installing software on anybody's workstation, because they're just going to use their internet browser in their Internet Explorer. So a web front end and a SQL Server back end. So the back end is a centralized server. This is all installed, by the way, on-premise in your environments. And having the processing happening centralized gives you better performance. The reports just run a lot faster because it's not using up the local resources. So you don't have to install a lot of memory on your local client machines. It's all happening on the server. The other thing is when you run a report in Renovo, it stores a copy of that report in the central server, so that when these people log in through the web to view the reports, they have access to a central reporting library. So all the reports are stored centrally and can be accessed from anywhere. And so what this means really is that you don't have, when you run a report, it doesn't run it locally, so it doesn't save a file locally, so you don't have to keep track of that local report. If you want to go back and look at historical financials, you can just log in through the web and view your last quarter or last year's report, because it's all stored centrally in a reporting library in various folders. So basically, you've got your general ledger data, like your Math 90 or 200, flowing through to the SQL Server backend and being displayed. The reports being displayed through the web front end. Now, there's 3 different types of users that we license. There are the admins, viewers, and publishers. And the viewers they can basically log in through the web, view the reports, drill down onto the reports, into the detail. The publishers can do everything the viewers can do, but the publishers can also run the reports as well as distribute and schedule them. But they're the ones that can run the reports. Is the main function of a publisher. And the designers can do everything the publishers and the viewers can do, but in addition, they can design the reports and administer the system. So these are your power users, your report designers within finance. So 3 different types of users that are licensed. Now there's a 4th type of user called a participant. And the participant does not require a license, so it doesn't cost anything. You can have as many as you want. And participants are basically people in your organization that might receive distribution of a report in an offline format, such as such as PDF or Excel or some other formats. So they can receive email delivery of these reports. It can have all the detail in it. It's just not an interactive drill down. All right. So these are people like departmental managers who you want to burst out reports to. So speaking about disbursements and bursting, there are some nice distribution features within the application that help facilitate and automate the distribution of reports out to different departments or cost centers or whoever. So the reports can be burst out automatically, and it can, it supports various formats like PDF and Excel and an offline drill down viewer. So you can export reports out to any format, and you can distribute them out based on what we call distribution lists that basically reside in your organizational tree. So on the left here we have this organizational tree, and each level will have a certain what we call distribution list tied to it. And that controls the bursting of the distribution of these reports out to the various people. Now, if those users out there have a viewer license, then they can actually log in through the web and view that central income statement online. And depending upon what group they're associated to, they'll only have access to their departmental information. So let's say like this person is in the operations department. When she logs in, she will only be able to see her department. So you're basically running one report that's sitting out there centrally, but depending upon who's logging in to see it, the system controls their access in terms of what levels or what departments that they can view and drill down on. So we're going to look at a lot of these things, including the distribution and design and drilling down in the product demonstration. So let's take a look at the application. I wanted to go through that PowerPoint really quickly because I do want to focus most of our time here in the application itself. All right, let me start from the beginning here. I'm going to log out so we can just log into the application. So you can see here we're in a web browser, and I will just log in with the username and password. And the username and passwords, they can be linked to Windows authentication. So we do support LDAP. And when they log in, it will, their security defines what they can and cannot access. So over here on the bottom left, you've got these various menus. The Develop Disk Reports menu is only available to the designers and the administrators. And this is where you would go to design your reports and your rows and your columns, etc. You've got a Request Reports tab, and this is available to the publishers who would be running individual reports or packages of reports. You've got the View Reports area, which is accessible by the viewer licensed users, and that gives them the ability to see their central repository or reporting library of various reports that they can navigate to and view, so they can see like historical reports or any reports that have been run for them. So here are some examples of some financials, like a tabbed balance sheet, or a consolidated balance sheet, across multiple companies. Renovo does even support the ability to pull from multiple data sources and multiple companies. Even multiple companies with different chart of account structures can be consolidated into one report. Let's see what else we've got here. How about an income statement that's got a side-by-side, comparison across divisions or companies or cost centers or locations, or however you want to design it. And with the, with this reusable components, basically, you can reuse this row definition with various column layouts. So if you picked a different income statement using the same organizational tree, same row, but different columns, so you can, reuse those components to create variations of, like in this case, a P&L. You can have reports that pull out from Excel. So this is an income statement that's got actuals going through March, which I ran the report for March or April, and then it's doing budgets coming from Excel going forward. So you can do pull from actuals, pull from your GL and from an Excel spreadsheet all into one report. Let's see another example here. This is an expense analysis type of report where instead of your traditional P&L where we have, in this case we've got like your departments going down the rows and then expense categories going across your columns. So it's really flexible in terms of how you report. Let's see what other good examples we got here. Here's another income statement layout, but in this case, again, different columns. In this case, we are doing a report that uses a percentage of net sales column. So it's really easy to do those types of reports in Renovo as well. Let's see, we've got, you can do various types of formatting, colors, and, and font styles, etc. So if you wanted to get a little more creative, you can. So all these different, any kind of financial report you can pretty much create within in the system. And when you're viewing reports in Renovo, it's really intuitive to navigate. So here I'm viewing this income statement, and if I wanted to see it departmentalized, I can click on the various departments in my organizational tree, and you'll see the header change depending on what department I'm looking at. So all they have to do is just click on the levels, the executive department or the locations within there. You can just click on your organizational tree to get to the, the various versions of that income statement. It's really just point and click. Same thing with drill down. So that's navigating via the tree, but if you click on the report itself, you can drill down into the details. So if I click on operating expenses, it'll drill down by department, for example. Let's say I want to look at administration, by location, by GL account. So here we're seeing the, the GL accounts that make up that value. And if you just wanted to drill down further, like rent, you could see the transactional detail as well. So you can drill down from a consolidated level down through your companies or your departments and locations to your GL account balances and down to the transactional detail. And again, it's just a point and click. You don't have to, anybody that's viewing this report doesn't have to learn anything or know how to, get any training really. It's pretty intuitive. All right, they've got some other options up here. We'll talk about those later. So this is the basic navigation within the report writer and viewing and drilling down on reports. What I'd like to do now is take this report and show you how these different components, these rows and columns and organizations are set up. So what we'll do is we're going to go into the design mode now. So I'm going to click on this menu, Develop Fiscal Reports, and that will take us to the design area. And I'll just run down these menus for you basically. So you've got reports, which is your listing of all your report definitions. It's a lot like your reporting catalog in FRX, just to draw the comparison. You've got rows, columns. So rows are like rows and columns are like columns, and organizations are the same thing as trees, and account collections are the same thing as account sets. So you'll see there's a lot of one-to-one relationships between FRX and Renovo in terms of how these reports are built. You've got some other functions here, participants. These are that fourth type of non-licensed user, the people that receive distribution. This is where you set them up. And you put them into distribution lists to control the distribution of the reports to these different people. And we're going to look at that later. Packages allow you to build report bundles or packs of reports and order the creation of those reports. So you can create report packs. You've got your presentation styles. Those are like your font styles. And you've got this other function here called audit components, which is really people that design a lot of reports really like this function because it allows you to check your report designs for any kind of discrepancies. So if you created a report and it didn't tie out for some reason and you weren't exactly sure why, you can audit your designs to see, well, hey, maybe it's missing an account or maybe it's got a duplicate account. So here we're seeing, I run this audit on this income statement and I can see that account 425, returns and allowances, is not being used in my design. So I can then go into this report design and edit that and add that account in. This saves you a lot of time when you're designing reports because it just gives you a way, without having to run the whole report and print off an exception report, this just is another easy way to quickly see audits on your designs to see if there's any issues. So let's go into that income statement and we will edit this thing around and show you how the different components play together. So we're going to go here to the report definition for this income statement, and this is where you build the report. You give it a name, you give it a description, and then you would assign your row and your column and your organization. All right, so that's the main building blocks of the report. Over here, you've also got other, other options like your page setup, letter, legal, portrait, landscape, and stuff like that. You've got report options for things like how to handle rounding, how to do things like suppressing rows with no amounts, other features. And these are for people that have used a financial report writer like an FRX or Renovo. Some of these functions that I myself take for granted. Suppressing rows with no amounts. Well, if you are dealing with just building a report in Excel, it's not so easy to build a report that will automatically suppress rows with no amounts. So there's a lot of little things like this in the report writer that you have at your fingertips as just functions within the report writer. And I'll point out a couple as we go along. Okay, so what else we got here? You've got this preview button here where you can click that preview button and you can preview your report before you actually run it. So if you're adding a row or a column or changing the spacing or the fonts or whatever, you can preview it quickly without actually going through the process of generating the report. So it's another little time saver. All right, so what we'll do is, this is the report definition, and then you have got your building blocks of rows, columns, and organizational trees. And so what we can do is we'll just click on like that row definition link, and this will go in and show us the row layout for this income statement. The first time you run it, it's got to load up this little Silverlight thing, and then it will take us into the row definition. So what you're seeing here is this income statement row layout. It's pretty straightforward, I think, if you've used FRX, but I'll just walk you through it. So for example, the first line is just a header line. It's going to print that description of revenue. So you've got these various row types that do different things. So the first one is just descriptive. The second line is going to print sales, and it's going to pull from the GL, and it's going to do pull the balance for account 400. The third line is just going to print an underscore. You've got other types of row types like calculations. This is like your subtotaling type of functions. You've got other functions like other row types like start and end sort, which is the same thing as A sort and S sort from FRX. Another one called assign row value. That's the same thing as CBR in FRX. That allows you to create those percentage of revenue or percentage of operating expense type of columns in your report. So you've got these different row types. You've got row codes, which you can renumber. That's the numbering of your rows. So a lot of the same functions, and all of this, if you are using FRX, will convert over from your row definitions in FRX. If you wanted to manually add rows, though, it's really easy. We'll just right-click here. I'm going to insert a row, and we'll put that account that was missing. So it was, I think, returns and allowances. Oops. All right. And this is going to pull from the GL, so we're going to select the GL row type. And then we need to tell it what GL account. So you can type it in, or you can use this lookup to look up into your chart of accounts. So you can do ranges, or you can do individual accounts. You can do searches or lookups, or you can type it in. Here is going to look up into my chart, and I can pull out like 425 from my Math9 database. But as I mentioned, you can do ranges as well. You can do wildcards even. So if I say 42 asterisk, that will do a wildcarded range. You can do things like exclusions. So if I say and exclude from there 420. So you can do all different types of filtering here. You can even define your rows by like department or location or other segments of your chart of accounts. So you don't have to do it just on natural account. You could do your rows by other segments of your chart. You can save this account range as a collection and reuse it in other reports, which is a really nice feature to have. So that if you add another chart of, let's say you add a new account code to your chart of accounts, this, by saving these settings as collections, it prevents you from having to add that account to all of your reports. You just add that new chart, that new account to your collection, and then it'll be reflected on all of your reports. So it's just another component that you could take advantage of. Okay, so we'll just, I'm going to just put that one account in here because that's really the only one we need. So this is just going to pull the balance for 425. It's pretty straightforward. So that's all we have to do, really. We can also look at some of the formatting options over to the right. So if you're familiar with format codes in FRX, you've got a lot of these options over here to the right, like formatting and filtering on the row, on each individual row, tying it to columns or to the tree, doing, underscoring or borders, print conditions, reversing the sign, suppressing zeros, etc. So you've got all these different formatting options out and filtering stuff out to the left. Last thing I need to do here, I'm going to edit my calculation. I'm going to put in a simple formula, row 110 minus row 120. And that's basically all we got to do here to edit this row. Now this is all like a spreadsheet, so you can, if you're starting from scratch, you can copy and paste from Excel right into your row definition. All right, so if we go back to our report definition, we click the preview button, you'll see that we added this returns and allowances row to our report. So next, let's look at the column layouts. So the columns in this report, we've got a current period actual versus budget and variance, and a year-to-date actual budget and variance. So let's take a look at how those are defined. So I'm going to go back to my report definition, and I'm going to click on the column definition to look at the columns. Here you've got, again, a very maybe familiar format, but so in column A, it's going to print the description, the account names, basically, or the descriptions of the rows. Then we've got a current period actual, we've got a budget, and then we're going to do a calculation of, C minus B for the variance and D divided by C for the percentage variance. So that's our report. Over here, you've got year-to-date, basically the same thing, but year-to-date. Couple things are, to point out here, like for your variance, for example, you notice this change variance sign formatting option down here is set to true. So when you're doing variances on income statements, your revenue section, your expense sections will have different signs. So there's a function in the report writer to change the variance sign on any variance type of column so that your variances will be consistent and correct. So this, again, is just one of those little features that you'll find in our report writer because RenovoFYI is designed specifically to do financial reporting. So you've got a lot of these features like change variance sign or debit credit marker or suppress rows with no amounts. These types of things are common functions that you need in a report writer that aren't so easy to do necessarily in some of the others. All right, let's do this. Let's insert a row to the left, and we'll insert a period amount row. You've got other types of rows that you can create. We'll just do a period amount, and what we'll do is we'll insert a row, and what we'll do is we'll make it like prior period. So this is how you do it. You come into this edit, and you pick your book, so it's going to be actuals. You pick your year, it's going to be current year, which is offset of 0, and your period, I'm going to say offset of -1 for prior period. And then you pick, is it going to be year-to-date or periodic or, the balance type. So it's going to be periodic, prior period. There's other formatting and other options back here, but, we'll kind of just leave those for now. Well, actually, you know what? I'll mention them because there's some pretty nice things back here. So formatting is your width and padding and the how to format it. But you've got other things like your options back here. Some really cool things like print options. You can print the column based on the report run date. So if you want to hide the column if we're running it in April and we don't want to print anything that is May and forward, you have these types of print options to play with. It does support multi-currency. And you've got a filter tab here as well. So this is if you want to filter your column out by levels in your organization or specific account codes. So for example, if you wanted to do an account that was, for a specific company or department, you can filter that down. So you can have, departmental comparison or company comparison across your columns. All right, so I'm just going to save that. And so here we have that new column in here, actuals for the last period. And what I'll do now is I'm just going to put in a header. So we'll say this is going to say prior period. And we're going to give it a font style of header, bold, italic. And we're going to say this is actuals. I'm going to put in header font style as well here. Okay, so it's just your header, and you can span it across multiple columns and center it and do all that kind of thing. So I've just added this prior period column. We're going to save our column definition, and of course you can reuse this in various other reports now. So we've got a row, our column, and if I hit the preview button, we'll see that row that we added, and here's the prior period column that we just added. All right? So those are your rows and your columns. And so the third part of your report, or the third food group, as I like to call it, is the organization, which you may know as a tree. And when we look at this, you'll probably notice it's very similar. So this is the organization definition of this report. All right? It's your hierarchy, it's your reporting tree, it's your roll-up structure, whatever you want to call it. It allows you to create consolidated financials and do roll-ups and hierarchies. So for example, I've got these various departments and locations, and just to give you an idea, my chart of account structure for this is the ABC Demo Company. It's a 3-digit natural, 2-digit department or division, and a 2-digit location. So for example, 00 is administration in my case, and 01 is executive, etc. for the department. And then I've got these locations. 01 is east, 02 is west, 03 is central. Okay? So you create your masks on these various levels, just like you would do a tree in FRX. We use a little bit different wildcards here. So where you would normally see ampersands, we use @ symbols, and where you would normally see question marks, you can use asterisks. But for the most part, it's very similar. You can reorganize your chart of account, your organizational structure. You can drag and drop. Like let's say I want to move development under IT. So I wanted to reorg or create a roll up this way. You can do that. What else? You can right click and promote or demote or move items around as well. Now all of this will convert over from FRX if you're using it. There's some other things though that you don't have the ability to do in FRX, which we've added here, like things like environment components, which allows you to create an organizational tree across multiple data sources. So if you've got a bunch of different companies or in different GLs or different structures, you can actually create a consolidated financial across your different environments. The other thing is you've got these distribution lists over here. So this is what I was referring to in the PowerPoint presentation about how it controls the distribution of reports. So you notice these various levels of the organizational tree have these different distribution lists assigned to them. And each of these distribution lists has people, users assigned to the list. So it controls the bursting and distribution of these different levels of this income statement out to the various people. It also controls the security access. So if I'm in the development list and I am a viewer licensed user and I log in to view this report, I'm only going to be able to see the IT level of the report. I can't go to the sales or the accounting department's P&L. This distribution list function, it really, it's very simple to use, but it has really big implications. A lot of people create, 10 different versions of the report so they can distribute it out to 10 different people. You won't have to do that if you use these distribution lists. You can have one report, take advantage of the organizational tree and the distribution list, and then it controls who gets what version of the report. And they can even log in. When they log in, they'll just see their version of the report. So it can cut down the amount of reports that you have and how long it takes to distribute them out. So let's take a look at how you use this distribution list. So from a design perspective, what we'll do is we're going to come in here and we will, let me just save this first. All right, we're going to come in and we're going to create a participant and we're going to add them to a list, and then we're going to add that list to this administration level of this organizational tree. Okay? So I click on participants and I'm going to create a new one, and we'll call this person Kim. All right, so Kim, you are a participant, and she's a participant only. And it's Kim, and Kim, I'm going to use my email address so we can show you some results here. Okay, so we've got a participant named Kim, and remember, participants, they don't cost you anything. They're not licensed or anything like that. They can just receive distribution. I'm going to come out to my distribution list, and we could create a new one, or I'm just going to use this one I've already got. And we can add Kim to our list here. So here's Kim, and I'm going to put her in this administration distribution list group. We'll save that. All right, so she's part of the administration team. Then we will go back to our organizational tree, and we will assign this distribution list to the admin level of the organization. So you simply click the lookup, and you browse into your distribution lists, and I'll pick administration. And I can apply it to all the levels below this level as well. So all the children levels I can apply it to as well. So now the administration distribution list is applied everywhere. You can do more than one list at any given level as well, so you can kind of nest things. And so that's how you create a distribution list and assign it to an organization. So what will happen now when we run this report, you'll see how it controls the distribution. So from a design perspective, we really looked at, creating or editing a report, the different components of it, rows, columns, and here organizations. So we added a row, we added a column, we looked at the organization, we created a new participant and added her to the distribution list, and then we assigned that distribution list to this level in the organization. I also briefly showed you how to create packages and how to audit your, your rows, for example. So now let's look at the other main menu here, which is requesting reports, which is really running the report. So this is where your publishers can go to pick a report or group of reports to run. And we're just going to run our income statement. And so I'll pick a date to run it, and I'll just give it a name here. Let's call it just ISM income statement. All right, we'll go next. So when you run a report, it walks you through this wizard. So you can go step by step, on the generation. So the next step is to choose the levels in the organization that I want to run the report for. I'm just going to mark everything. The next step is the distribution. So this is where you can automate the distribution of the reports out. So here I can say, distribute it based on my organization, meaning use those distribution lists that we assigned on our organizational tree to determine who to send the report out to, send them an email, and attach in the email the report in whatever format, PDF or Excel or different formats. So this is the distribution. Now I will say, normally in real life, you're not going to check this box, because what you normally are going to do is run the report, look at it first, and you might have to run it a couple times until you're happy with it. And when you're happy with it, then you can not manually, but ad hoc distribute it out to everybody. So I'm going to check this just for the demo, but normally you're going to run the report, and when you look at it and you're happy with it, then you use the ad hoc distribution feature, which I'll show you. The next step in the wizard is a scheduler. So you've also got a built-in scheduling function. So if you want to schedule reports to automatically generate, you can do that too. So all this scheduling and bursting and distributing, this is all available in the base, inherent within the report writer. You don't have to buy an additional module to do any of this. All right, I'm just going to submit it, and it's going to run there. Now it's running out on my server. So if you remember, it's got a web front end, but the back end is a centralized SQL server. So it's going to generate on that central on that central server, and it just makes it run a lot faster. So here we're just going to click this link to view the report, and this is our output, with our new column and our new row. And you can drill down on it just by clicking on the on the lines, of course, and drill down to the details. But some other options, we looked at drill down already, so we won't do it again. But up here, you've got some other buttons. You can export any of your reports. All right, so you just click that print export button, and it gives you a little window. And you can first select what level of detail you want to export. So everything, or the level I'm on, or the level I'm on and everything below it. And you can select the level of detail that you want to export. Let's say, you want the summary and the account detail and even the transactional detail as well. You can select that as well. And then you can just click the export button, and it just puts it out to, in this case, a PDF. And then you can do whatever you want with it from a PDF or Excel. So this is that report out to PDF, and if you scroll down on the PDFs, you'll get like various levels of detail. So you could get the account balances or the transactional detail. In Excel, when you export it out, it puts it into various tabs across the bottom. So let's just look at an example. Like a report export out to Excel, you get these different tabs with like the account balances and the transactional detail. All right. So you can export reports, and then you've got another button here for distribution. So this is what I was talking about before with ad hoc distribution. So normally what happens is you run the report, you look at it, okay, it looks good, I'm ready to burst it out to everybody. You click the distribution options button, and then you can either, you would probably just check this box here. This box is saying use those distribution lists that we assigned on the tree and send it out to everybody in Excel or whatever format. You could also alternatively pick, specific departmental or different distribution lists to burst it out to. All right, but normally you're just going to want to use the original distribution and burst it out that way. So that's the ad hoc distribution. All right, so that's basically running a report. So we've looked at things from a designer's perspective and the publisher's perspective, and then lastly, from a participant and a viewer. If I'm a participant, I'm really just receiving email distributions. So, like if we look here in my email, I've got these various distributions of the reports out in Excel or out in PDF. So if I just open this email, for example, what's over here? Okay. You'll see I've got this message saying, hey, your report's ready. You can log in to see it. Or I've attached your department's reports. So you'll notice that, you see, it's got the admin level only and the children beneath there. But by using those distribution lists, it's only going to burst out to this person, their department's financial. So as a participant, I get email distribution, but I can, I'm only going to get the department I've been assigned. If I was a viewer, okay, I get this email notification and I get a hyperlink taking me to, having me log in. So as a viewer licensed person, when I log in, I will only have the View Reports tab. Oops. And I'll have access to my online reporting library. And I can see the reports that have been run for me. So there's this ISM income statement. And I will only have access to the levels that I'm part of in terms of the group. So this viewer is actually in 2 different departments. So when he logs in, or he or she logs in to view their report, they can only access their department. I can't go to these other guys. So here, from creating one report and distributing it out, using the security, different people can log in to view that report in a central location, but only be given access to what you want them to see. And then if they want to print it out, out into PDF or Excel, they can do it themselves. All right, and the other thing is, okay, so what happens is when I log in to view the reports, I'm presented with my View Reports folders, and any of the reports that have been run for me will appear in this unfiled folder. But if I say, you know what, I'm gonna save that report, I want to be able to access that later, I can use this maintain folder structure, and I can drag it into, a folder or subfolder, so I can go back and look at it any time. So this is like an online, content management or online reporting library, so that I can go back and I can look at any historical reports that have been run for me, from previous periods or previous months in my kind of online repository. And that's pretty much what the viewers can do. They can view their reports online. They can drill down on them. They can reorganize and organize their folders, and they can export their reports, etc. So we've really looked at the RenovoFYI report writer from kind of all different angles. Viewing reports and drilling down on them, exporting them, distributing. So viewers, we looked at designing reports and the different components of rows and columns and trees for organizations. And we looked at publishing and running reports and distributing them and scheduling them. So this was kind of the, just a very high-level overview of, the basic different experiences of using RenovoFYI.